Tonnyson's study, War and Government in Habsburg Spain, 1560 to 1620, gives eloquent testimony to the reality of the kind of disorder that Calderón shows us in the Alcalde de Salamea. Thompson says the annual movement of 40 or more companies across Castile left in its wake the destruction, and rapine. An endless series of robberies, murders, rapes, malicious and wanton violence, jailbreaks, even pitched battles between soldiers and civilians, repeated year after year, stretched along all the most traverse routes of the kingdom. The coming of a company of soldiers was awaited with the same trepidation as a hurricane. Those who could fled its path. Those who could not were forced to abandon their trades, to stay at home, to protect their wives, their daughters, and their property. In this drama, however, Calderón shows that the presence of an aristocratic captain might not prevent, but rather provoke tragedy. Rather than disciplining his subordinates, the captain Don Alvaro de Atege stages a fight with the Guerilleros and pretexts to have access to the daughter whom Crespo has prudently hidden from view. And he later kidnaps and rapes her, as so wonderfully recreated by Ben in the performance he saw. In the tragedy, the king arrives in time to sanction Crespo's execution of the captain. But in real life, as Thompson points out, the king could not step in to solve bureaucratic and jurisdictional honor conflicts that trapped royal officials attempting to impose order in the city. Furthermore, as we all know, despite the grounding of aristocratic privilege on the nobility's duty to perform military service, as the 17th century progressed, many nobles were increasingly reluctant to take up arms. In the 1640s, with multiple foreign wars compounded by rebellions in Catalonia, Portugal, Chile, the Philippines, and Goa, generalized hatred of the Olivares regime even led to what Marañón labeled la huelga de los grandes, many of whom abandoned the court and ignored Olivares' attempt to impose taxes on them and compel them to perform military service. His attempts to form a battalion of 2,000 cavalrymen from the port of Madrid to serve in Portugal failed. Only 150 members of military orders appeared for the king's review in the Buen Retiro in the autumn of 1640. A number of nobles argued that they were not obliged to join a campaign unless they were accompanying the king. Although it had been announced for several years that Philip IV would assume leadership close to the battle zone, Olivares opposed it, which his enemies attributed less to his fear for the king's safety than his own fear of losing control over it. Calderón, however, did respond to the call to arms, appearing mounted to join a cavalry company in May of 1640, and he continued to serve in Catalonia until November 1642, when he was released because of ill health. In the autumn of 1641, he was sent from Tarragona to Madrid to give Philip IV an account of the distressing conditions of the troops, and he remained there several months. While in Madrid, Calderón wrote a fascinating and little study auto-sacramental entitled El Divino Cazador for performance in the 1643 Corpus Christi celebration. Given the gravity of the military situation and the generalized hope of the moral effect of his leadership, however, a junta de ejecución did approve the king's assumption of that role in August of 1641, but it had to be postponed for a year because the flotilla did not arrive from America and finances did not permit it. Although he did leave Madrid in April of 1642, skeptics doubted he would ever reach the front, that Olivares would keep him entertained hunting in the royal reserves and similar diversions. Time limitations don't permit extended analysis here of the political implications of Calderón's output in these circumstances. But as I've written elsewhere, I believe that Calderón made it his dramatic support of those calling for Philip IV to take personal command of the troops. In the output, in response to the pleas of Género Humano, the celestial monarch agrees to send his son, the prince, to their assistance, devised as a divine hunter, armed with an arquebus, the arm Philip IV carries in Velázquez portrayed him as a hunter, with which to destroy the demonic enemy who has provoked general rebellion in the terrestrial realm. Thus incarnated, he will descend to earth, he says, because la vista del príncipe saliendo solo a mirar acabará la guerra. At the opposite end of the divine demonic spectrum, and on the other side of the Atlantic, Calderón envisions and dramatizes the same tacit class structure in La Aurora in Copacabana on the conquest and Christianization of Peru, and a supposedly miraculous intervention of the Virgin Mary in that process. Briefly, and both Brent and Francisco described it more fully. He creates a classic Spanish gracioso named Papel, whom he makes the mouthpiece of idolatry's efforts to retain the loyalty of the natives to her cult. Granted, he shares the honors with an Atabaliba, whom Calderón pictures as subject to the same destructive amorous passions used to question imperfect Castilian